Folks, it's main event time, House of the Dragon Season 3, Episode 8, The Battle of Tumbleton. It's sure been a rocky road, but the next hour or so may just turn the tide, as the blacks and the greens square off in one of the bloodiest battles in the Dance of the Dragons. As always, we'll break down the new trailer, I'll throw some predictions your way, with some details from Fire and Blood, so I'll give you guys a quick spoiler warning before we begin. As always, we'll bunch all the relevant storylines together to make it much easier to follow. So I imagine the majority of the runtime will be focused on Tumbleton itself, but we will return to King's Landing to see how Rhaenyra is getting on. Adam tells us Aegon's return is now public knowledge, and no surprise, Rhaenyra isn't taking it all too well. She's going down a dark path, and I know many have been crying out for Rhaenyra to finally break and start to act more like her book counterpart. I think much of her rage will be saved for the final season, but news of her half-brother's return, and later the outcome of the battle itself, will drive her off the edge. She got a little physical with Helaena last week, and this time she goes a step further, grabbing Baela's face, perhaps relating to Rhaena, or maybe Baela tries to bring up the subject of Alan and Adam's legitimacy. Maybe Baela is just in the wrong place at the wrong time. But Daemon tells his wife she has absolute power in her grasp, she has only to wield it. And Daemon was all for using the dragons to not only destroy the High Towers, and to bring all the lords of Westeros back in line, but he even madly suggested conquering not only Dorne, but Essos and even further beyond. Obviously right now Tumbleton is the main concern, but I can see Rhaenyra in the future being much more open to unleashing Fire and Blood. She was against using the dragons on her own people, but I don't know how long her restraint will hold. Helaena tells her sister their father would hate her for this. Perhaps that does mean Rhaenyra will use the dragons. Or it could be related to Rhaenyra forcing Helaena into more dragon dreams, hoping to weaponize her sister's gift. Helaena was one of the better parts of last week's episode, but I don't know if she'll make it to the final season. Her death has been heavily foreshadowed many times, and I can see the season concluding with Helaena dead on the ground as Alicent returns to the capital and Rhaenyra takes the blame. And Rhaenyra's list of allies grows thin. After all the drama concerning Sheepstealer, her marriage with Daemon is on the rocks. I wonder how he would feel if Mysaria let slip what went down that night. Would he even care? Would he ask to join next time? I don't think Daemon would be too outraged with his queen sleeping with another woman, but because it's Mysaria, that will be a problem, as the White Worm and the Rogue Prince are far from friends. We also see Rhaenyra staring at her father's crown, declaring there will be no doubt who the gods have chosen to rule. She's always tried to rule in her father's image, stay true to his beliefs, and she fully believes that she is destined to rule and to preserve Aegon the Conqueror's Song of Ice and Fire. No matter her actions, how cruel they are, in the end it will all be justified. And as I said, I think much of Rhaenyra's anger and paranoia will be saved for next season, but they may leave us with a similar scene to the very first season finale, where Rhaenyra receives bad news concerning what's happened at Tumbleton. Daemon will likely get the blame, and then all bets are off. Emma Darcy has been fantastic when allowed to let loose, and I am very excited to see Rhaenyra no longer holding back. Up at Harrenhal, Aemond looks like he's recovered from his mother's poisoning. We can see him in the Great Hall, the very same hall King Jaehaerys sat when Viserys was declared his heir. It's massive, large enough to hold a meeting of all the great lords of the realm, and large enough to house the largest dragon known to man. Could this be where Vhagar returns after a little sightseeing in the Riverlands? Perhaps like Aegon and Sunfire, Vhagar will return to her rider when he accepts his true purpose. And we see Aemond stare off into some light. Perhaps this is Vhagar's return when she presents herself, or maybe Aemond has a vision of his own, similar to Daemon's at the end of last season, but rather than witnessing the Song of Ice and Fire, the one-eyed prince sees the God's Eye and his battle against his uncle. Now he knows this is where he must face Daemon once and for all, whether this is in some sort of ritual combat to bring Alice's dragon eggs back to life, or just a task that needs to be overcome to secure the new line of unsullied kings. But Harrenhal was absolutely terrible last week. I, for one, do not wish to witness any more of Aemond's mummy issues. Just let him ride Vhagar and unleash chaos in the Riverlands before facing Daemon in the final showdown. But I know you're all here for the battle. Tumbleton has been building all season, And to be honest, the season as a whole has been very hit or miss, but I feel if they stick the landing, then fans will be much happier going into the 2-year break. Ormond has outplayed Rhaenyra at every step. He's caused chaos in King's Landing, has Corlys in chains. Corlys is probably talking about dead high towers to either Gwaine, maybe Daeron, or just Ormond who is teasing him. But remember, Ormond now has his most valuable piece on the board, Ulf the White, not Targaryen, as we always say. A plan which looks like remains a secret even from King Daeron, who has become very frustrated with Ormond and fears what he may become. But from the books, we all know that Ulf will not turn on his own, as Hugh will also side with Ormond. Unlike Ulf, I don't think Hugh wants a castle, but rather just wants to protect his wife Cat, who is a resident of Tumbleton. Their last meeting was far from pleasant, and I kind of feel they revealed Ulf last week because they plan on having Hugh be the surprise betrayal. I think that is Vermithor in the skies above Daemon's army, and later above Ormond, as he leads the defence of the town. So that all makes me think Hugh will turn mid-fight. Either he has already agreed with Ormond to turn on Daemon when his back is turned, or he is still contemplating his decision. And I expect the battle to play out with Daemon's Riverlands army and the Winter Wolves on top for the majority of the fight until Hugh changes side. Kind of like a reverse Helm's Deep or Battle of the Bastards moment. Vermithor is second only to Vhagar in size and strength, so it would take at least 2 dragons to challenge him. Perhaps Caraxes and Seasmoke combine, but let's not forget, Silverwing will be there to back up her husband. But maybe Daemon isn't given a chance to mount his dragon, as we see Daemon several times on horseback and later on foot leading his men. We also see Alan leading the Velaryons, and I think many people believe this is some sort of funeral procession at King's Landing, but I don't know. With the threat against Corlys' life, the Velaryons might be unable to join Daemon's forces and have to remain inside King's Landing. But I'll tell you who I am looking forward to seeing crack some high tower skulls, Roddy the Ruin, the leader of the Winter Wolves, who cannot wait to die for the Dragon Queen. Honestly, lately I've been craving some good old Northern action. HBO just gave us that Robert's Rebellion TV show already. But as I said, I expect Daemon's forces to be on top for the majority of the battle until Ulf and later Hugh reveal themselves. The Blacks losing Vermithor and Silverwing will be a disaster. Rhaenyra having 6 dragons was her advantage, but losing 2 of the larger ones to her enemy changes everything. The moral of the story is, folks, never come between a man and a pint of beer. Of course, when news reaches Rhaenyra of Daemon's defeat, the Dragon Seed's betrayal, Aegon's return, and Alicent's failure to kill Aemond, then that is when we'll get our paranoid and cruel Dragon Queen. Even if Ormond and Daeron fall this season, she still has Aemond and Vhagar, Aegon and Sunfire to contend with, and now a couple of rogues in Ulf and Hugh who have dragons of their own. But guys, let me know your thoughts on the trailer for episode 8. Give me your finale predictions. Thanks for watching, take care, and I'll see you soon.